Welcome to the Storyfield. This is Josh Allen, and I'm joined by Micah Petrie. This is a podcast created and sponsored by the Allen Firm. At the Allen Firm, we think there are too many unknowns in life's legal situations. The Allen Firm provides legal guidance so you can make a great decision, come to a resolution, and be at peace. For more information about the Allen Firm, visit allenlawfirm.com. Well, we think you will agree that life is complex, business is hard, and living a life of faith can feel complicated. You're in the right place today to hear some great stories of normal people just like us who will inspire you to move forward in life. Thank you for joining us today. We know you're going to be encouraged. Hey, Storyfield, say hello to Ron Hughes. So Ron is, if I could give you just a little bit of bio on him and some words, I'm going to say entrepreneur, construction manager, real estate broker, high-level executive, father, husband, and really someone I consider a good friend and somebody I highly respect as a man of God, Ron, and you just very high character and integrity. So you have a lifetime of leadership and professional work experience working with some of the most influential people down to just normal folk like me. So thank you for making time today.
I appreciate the introduction, but I'm normal folk as well.
Good. Well, so Ron, you and Tina own and operate Railhead Realty in Willow Park, Texas, along with partner Jim Martin. And you guys also have formed and owned JRM Construction Services as several of the real estate development companies. And from what I could tell, it looks like JRM Construction runs probably 20 projects at a time. I mean, is that all in the Parker County area?
No, we have some in Hood County as well,
Okay.
down around Crescent.
Okay.
So we focus mostly west of Fort Worth, Hood and Parker County.
Okay. And that includes one of the big projects you'll see when you're on I-20 in Willow Park is the Willow Park Baptist Church. It's a big multi-million-dollar new facility, which is looking great and coming along. So, and I met Ron when he blessed me so much personally by taking me and our law firm, him and his partner Jim, just under their wing and give us a place to open our first office outside of Stephenville. So you've been a big blessing and influence to me, Ron. I appreciate it.
Sure.
Now, we're going to get into it. And one thing I should mention, I'm excited about Ron telling the story because he was involved in founding a long distance business with only $100,000 as a startup. And this blows my mind. So it's going to be fun. So I hope people tune in. And it ended up peaking with revenues of like $1.7 billion and 49 states, 10 European countries, Canada, Mexico, with some of the largest revenues at $200 million a year. So you guys became the largest customer of the U.S. Post Office and the largest junk mailer, over 1 billion pieces of junk mail mailed each year. So there's a story there, Ron. We're going to find that out, okay?
I'm not sure it's noteworthy, but it was fun.
Okay. Well, tell us where you grew up. Let's get going on kind of childhood. Walk us kind of in a little bit of a progression.
Okay, I grew up in the little town of Bayard, Texas, which is 20 miles east of Abilene,
Okay.
right on Interstate 20, kind of the hill that separates West Texas from Central Texas. And then, of course, went to high school there, little class of 28. One of my partner, Jim, always says he graduated 15th in his class, but the class only had 17 in it.
So it was a small school.
That's probably close to my distinction as well. From there, I went to Abilene Christian, graduated with a biology and chemistry degree, accepted to med school, but I had to wait a year after my senior year before I got the last two courses in. And by that time, I just decided I'd been working for Safeway all throughout college. Always had to work to make ends meet. And Safeway kept pulling on me saying, hey, we want to make you assistant manager. I kept saying, well, you can, but I'm going to med school. And they said, we understand. I said, no, I don't think you do. I'm going to med school in a year. And they kept saying, well, just try it. You may like it. And at least we'll get a good year out of it. So they made me assistant manager. Within 7 weeks, they made me store manager. But there was a pro and con to that because they made me store manager in my own store where I'd been working. So all the employees are looking at me, well, here's this 21-year-old upstart. Now all of a sudden he's the store manager.
Oh yeah, was that in Abilene?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, well, time out. You're not gonna let me. I'm not gonna let you get down the road that too fast.
Okay.
So back up a little bit. What was your family like? What was growing up in like, your mom and dad, your family, your childhood? Like, if you could look back and just kind of describe it, what would you say?
Uh, Very religious family. Uh, my dad was an elder in the Church of Christ. So we were in church 3 times a week.
Yeah, yeah.
And if there was a vacation Bible school or a gospel meeting, we were there every time the doors opened. And frustrated me a little bit. I mean, I enjoyed it. Really strong believer, but it frustrated me a little bit because I had to miss some little league games whenever the gospel meeting was.
Oh yeah.
But had great parents, strong ethics. One of the things I always say about my dad, and I said this at his eulogy, is that I never heard him cuss. I never heard him raise his voice at my mom, and just quality. And of course, never heard him lie. So just a quality guy. And
So he left a big legacy. Yeah.
I just wish I could be half the man he was.
Oh, so growing up, what out in Barrett, and that's considered, I guess you guys considered it West Texas. You said it was on the line. So what did y'all do for fun? I mean, what's something for fun to do out in West Texas? Now I went out tech. I mean, you know that, but for a lot of people, they don't know about Barrett and what's Barrett like, and like, what does it look like out there?
Well, it's just as far as what it looks like I say, there's actually trees there. Like when you climb the hill going into Abilene, a lot of those trees go away, but there's a chain of hills that runs basically from the hill country up through Coleman, Baird, Albany, and Throckmorton. So we were residing right at the bottom of one of those hills, kind of a mini Caprock, if you will.
Okay.
Fun place to be, but typical redneck town.
Yeah.
And even though I grew up in the country, I kind of rebelled against the redneck, wouldn't wear boots until I was 25. But neat place.
Where were you? Did you get involved in outdoor sports? I mean, I know you as a hunter, so talk a little bit about, was that normal part of childhood?
Yeah, hunting and fishing was big with me. I guess my hunting legacy translated a few years later when I named my son Rifle.
Okay.
But so hunting and fishing, really big. As far as sports, varsity tennis, and was a miler in the track. So
Okay.
had fun.
Okay. So that's small town Texas, just for people who may not be around us. So, oh yeah, let's get on. But first, I want to ask you about rattlesnake hunting, because there will be a lot of people who have never heard or been to the rattlesnake roundup in Sweetwater or rattlesnake hunting. So you got to give us some just West Texas, tell us about it.
Well, it's one of my vices. I guess I've got several, and people look at me, well, isn't that dangerous? Have you ever gotten bit or come close to getting bit? And the answer is no. When you're rattlesnake hunting, you're looking for rattlesnakes. Whereas if you're spring turkey hunting, you're looking straight away across the horizon and under trees and all. I mean, you're looking 50, 60, 100 yards out. When you're rattlesnake hunting, you're looking at your feet.
Yeah.
So same thing with dove hunting. You're looking up in the sky for dove. You're not watching. Next thing you know, there's a rattlesnake right there. So it's, like I say, one of my vices.
And y'all used to go out to do that on purpose, right? I mean, just to clarify.
Every year.
Okay. Okay. How many would you catch? Like, what's a good day?
Best trip we ever had was in a day and a half. We caught 183.
Oh my gosh! Ron.
And we put them in boxes and then take them up to the roundup or whatever. Interesting note: I've never been to the Sweetwater Roundup.
Oh, really? Okay.
I've sent a lot of snakes up there, but never been. It just wasn't my gig. It's kind of a tourist trap.
Yeah, you didn't need to. You were catching them anyways. Okay. Well, thanks for explaining that. Last thing on hunting, and we might circle back. What's the one of the coolest things you've ever shot? What's one of your? Is there a couple things you're just like, man, this was one of the best, or catch fish? I mean.
Well, I mean, when you're young, the biggest buck you can find is what you're after. When you get older, it's kind of struggle to remember why you want to go out and sit on a cold, hard rock looking for a deer. But yeah, early on, I was really into hunting and deer and elk, probably my primary quarry. But a really interesting side note, I put myself through a lot of my college expenses by coyote hunting. So predator calling and then selling the hides. So it's kind of a double thrust. You were eliminating some of the, the problem with coyotes and young calves and so forth, or young heifers calving. And monetarily, it helped me out.
Oh, wow. So ACU, so yeah, graduated from Baird, 20 people in class at ACU, and then would ranchers hire you guys to come and kill the varmints and kill coyotes? And is that how that would work, or?
Well, they didn't have to hire us. I actually would have paid them. So,
Oh, okay. But the college guys wouldn't
but
have fun.
I would get a call in the middle of the night sometimes. Again, a first year calving heifers bred to a big bull might get in trouble, and that's about the only time coyotes are a problem. They're not going to go out and just kill calves at random, but they'd call me out and have me do my thing.
Okay. Well, that's a good way to make some money for a college guy.
It helped.
Yeah. So 4 years in college, ACU, small. I mean, Abilene's growing. That's a great school. Pretty small back then. Then
I think it was 4,400.
Okay. And then you went with, did you know all the time you wanted to pursue and be a medical doctor? Was that the plan?
No, not really. First couple of years, I thought I was going to be an electrical engineer. I was going to transfer to Texas Tech to start my junior year and get my electrical engineering degree from there. But that summer I'd actually already moved up to Lubbock. About that time, there was a huge layoff of electrical engineers. Redstone Arsenal was one of the leading employers in Alabama. And that spooked me a little bit. And I thought, maybe I need to rethink this. So that's what made me decide, hey, maybe I ought to go to medical school. Well, at the time, Texas Tech did not have a medical school, and they didn't have the strongest record of getting students in, whereas Abilene Christian had a really strong biology and chemistry department and had a better record. So I called them up, called the registrar up, talked to a counselor and asked them if they would increase my scholarship if I'd come back. They did, and I went back to Abilene.
Oh, wow. I mean, that's a good shift too. So you jumped into the medical field, graduated with that degree. Then right after college, is that when you went and applied for Safeway?
No, I've been working for Safeway all through college.
Oh, okay.
Night crew, third man, stalker, checker, just a way to put myself through college. I paid for my entire college except for $200 through national defense loans and scholarship and working, and had to borrow one semester. I got in a tight, went to my dad and said, hey, I need to borrow $200. He said, okay, gave me the $200. A few weeks later, I scarfed it back up, went to repay him. And he said, you've not taken one dime towards college. I can forgive a $200 note.
That's not bad, Ron.
It was a great thing, except it robbed me of having the ability to say I paid for all of my college.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Yeah, good point. So you were just working through the ranks, whatever, at Safeway. For people who don't know Safeway, I mean, I don't know if that's a Texas thing, but it certainly was pretty prevalent.
It was back then. I mean, they were the largest grocery store in the United States.
Okay.
But they had extremely high wages because of the labor union shop, and higher than any of the independents. And so it was a struggle being competitive, and we prided ourselves on customer service. But as the times got a little harder back then, I remember I was given a store in Stanford, Texas, as my first store as store manager. Little store, cotton farming community, little store that had been open 7 years. had never made a dime of money, had always lost money. And so I was transferred, promoted up there, and just a great community, hardworking folks and so forth. And ironically, I found out that the reason it was not making money, Safeway gave us really good financial reports. I was scanning the reports one day and saw that the electricity bill was much higher than the much bigger store that I'd been at in Abilene. And I thought, something's wrong here. So I go back in the back room and saw the automatic clocks for the air conditioner system were set on blow 24 hours a day. So it was just sitting there burning a ton of electricity.
That tells you a story right there.
Yeah, it does. The reason I like Safeway is they gave us great tools to measure productivity.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say about the financial reports you were just saying. Like, keep on. Yeah, talk about
right.
that.
Sales per man hour, or how many cases does a stocker stock? How many dollars a day in an 8-hour shift does a checker run through their checking stand? And it's always been my opinion, if you can measure things, you can manage things. And they gave us this long before people knew what a KPI was, a key performance indicator. That's exactly what they were providing us. Great shop, had fun. There were a couple of other things in that little store. One is I got to walking around the store, and it was back during the days when you mark specials with little orange tags with the marker. And there were orange tags on virtually everything in the store. And I asked the stockers and all that, I said, what's the deal? I said, why are you not taking, after the special, you're supposed to remove the orange tags. I said, why are you not taking them off? No one ever told us to.
Oh, yeah.
Well, essentially, everything in the store was on special until it sold out. And then, of course, the new stock, they wouldn't mark it with the orange tag. But that was the second thing. The third thing was theft. And I said, well, where are your two-way mirrors so that I can watch for shoplifters? And well, we don't have shoplifting. And I said, yeah, you do. I said, I need a drill. So they gave me a drill. I jumped up on top of the produce vault that was in the back room, climbed up where I had some elevation, bored a hole in the wall. And within 2 hours, it caught 3 or 4 different shoplifters.
Oh my
and what happens when you catch a shoplifter in Stanford, Texas, it goes in the newspaper.
Oh, no, yeah.
So it was a self-fulfilling prophecy. We didn't have shoplifting anymore because they publicized all that shoplifting, and it stopped. And
so did the store
we also had employee theft.
Oh, okay. I was about to say, yeah.
Caught a stocker and a checker in a meat market department marking a ham at a penny a pound and then checking out. So once we stopped some of that, the first month it actually had a loss, but from then on, the store made money. The problem was my district manager walked in one day and he said, got some bad news. I said, what's that? He said, I've sold your store. I said, what? I said, I've turned it around. He said, well, that's exactly why I sold your store. There was a group that had an option on it, and it was coming to the end of their option, and they saw the improvement. They wanted your store. They bought it. See ya.
So you lost your job, or they just moved you to a different store?
I had to bus back to assistant manager, and I said, well, I get the next store, don't I? And he said, well, we've got affirmative action decree. We had to promote 2 women first.
Huh.
And I said, well, can you transfer me? And he said, yeah, I'll transfer you to Dallas. So that's how I kind of ended up in the Metroplex for a while.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Was it with Safeway? Did you take another store?
With Safeway.
Okay.
Same thing. Store, brand new, nice store. Been open a few years. Didn't make money. I thought, I'll just do this again. And got to looking around and talking to the employees. Well, found out 2 employees have been shot in armed robberies. There have been 2 armed robberies within a year. One employee was shot and killed. Another one was, very seriously wounded. And management forgot to tell me that when they transferred.
Oh my gosh.
And that's kind of what put me at the last straw with Safeway. I thought, this working 65 hours a week, and
yeah.
I didn't sign up and go through college and do all this. And have a wife and baby to have my head blown off. So
yeah.
I thought I better find another career.
Okay, so how old were you about that time? And
Oh,
then
probably,
what was kind of next steps? Like you mid-20s?
I was probably 24.
Okay. And you were in Dallas. What happened next?
I moved back to Abilene again. It's kind of my home base. So,
Yeah.
uh, bought a submarine sandwich shop uh, way before Subway was, I guess Subway was out there, but I'd never heard of it. It was in the bottom of a hotel right next to a Southwestern Bell building. And, you know, wasn't much to it except we pulled a few tricks and got the sales up 3 times in just a matter of 3 or 4 weeks. They were just running out of inventory and had nothing to sell. But that's how I got into telecom. Is the Southwestern Bell folks would come in uh, on their breaks and for breakfast and for lunch, and so I got to talking to them, and they talked me into applying with Southwestern Bell.
Oh my goodness, Ron. I never knew that that was your springboard into the telecom world was submarine shop. What was the name of the shop? I'm just curious.
It's called the Sub Galley.
Okay. Wow. So how long, tell me about that transition. Was that like a year you were
No,
running
that was
it?
4 or 5 months. Like I say, within
Okay.
a few weeks, I'd triple sales. When I got the job with Safeway, it was in Midland, Texas, and I didn't want to operate that, or hire a manager and try to manage it remotely. And I just figured I'd be stolen blind, so I sold it back to the person I bought it from,
Yeah.
and moved to Midland, Texas.
Okay. And then Midlands where you started your telecom
That's correct.
industry experience. And that was first with Southwestern Bell.
So Southwestern Bell for I guess 6 years, and then transitioned over to AT&T for a few months, and then into the independent world.
Okay. How would you summarize your Southwestern Bell time period?
Uh, it was
Like
neat.
what was your role as well? Like kind of what were you doing through that time?
Well, started as a communications consultant, ended up as a customer service supervisor. Was 2 or 3 years into the job, I was promoted to a job in St. Louis in staff. They called it a promotion. I called it exile, but it was 20 months and 15 days before I went back.
To be precise. Yeah.
So I was counting time.
Yeah.
I was actually offered a double promotion to go with AT&T instead of Southwestern Bell from St. Louis to Basking Ridge, New Jersey. But that was just too far of a step out for a little country boy. And I thought, nah, I'm going back to my roots. So we moved back to Midland.
Okay. And then, so at that point you were in leadership. Did something happen? You were just getting tired of it, or I mean, did just
No,
the better opportunity present itself somehow?
yeah, wasn't tired of it, wasn't frustrated, enjoyed the job. But one of my key clients was Cladesta Plaza, which was a big building or a big suite of buildings north of town, new office complex. The project manager there was a gentleman by the name of Joe Mitchell.
Okay.
Joe and I became close as I was selling him PBXs and lots of services. And then he was reselling long distance, kind of as an opportunity. At the time, this was 1984. The Midland Central Office, in other words, their exchange, their 6-8 exchange, was the fastest growing exchange in the world. And it was because Midland was in a boom. Well, he was wanting to move clients into this complex. He couldn't get them in fast enough. So he decided to buy a great big PBX just so he could move people in and provide the phone service. Because we couldn't, at Southwestern Bell, we couldn't react quickly enough to provide them phone service. So he bought a huge PBX and then started selling them phone service and long distance,
Oh
which
wow.
springboarded him into the idea of, well, maybe I ought to get selling long distance statewide.
Oh
And
wow.
that's how the next job segue was.
Okay. So did he run you down, make you an offer, and told you let's do it?
He
Or
did.
how'd that work?
Well, he invited me to take him fishing.
Oh
So
man.
I took
He
him
did.
fishing to my deer lease. Had a great time, caught some fish, and at that time he approached me. He said, "I want you to come to work for me because we want to build this microwave system statewide and start selling long distance statewide." And he said, I said, well, I'm all ears. I was single at the time, had a house payment and a car payment, but that was it. And he said, I'll offer you $36,000 a year. And I went, Joe, do you have any idea how much I made last year? He said, no, how much? And I said, well, it's about 85,000. No, this is 1980. This is
Yeah.
1984. And he said, oh man, most I can give you is 42,000, but I'll give you a company car, a gas card. We'll get you a secretary. You'll get to go to deer camp, and you'll be a member. We'll give you a member of the Plaza Club, which was a CCA membership. And I said, done.
Oh.
I went to work at half what I'd been making.
The perks got you.
They did.
Okay.
Say I was in a position in my life where I could pull that off.
Yeah, no, that's what I was wanting to know. Like, looking back, what was it you think that, because it wasn't obviously the money, like what was intriguing enough or like moved the needle for you on that?
Joe was working for an independent oil and gas man who was quite the character. His name was Clayton Williams Jr.
Oh yeah.
And Clayton ultimately ran for governor back in 1990, but that's another story. Just a very charismatic guy. And everyone in town wanted to work for him because he was just, even though no ownership in the company was given out to any employees, everyone felt like that's my company.
Yeah.
Same thing happened when Joe attracted me to this company called Claydesta Communications. I didn't get any stock or any bonus plan, although we did get bonuses, but not a formalized plan. It's just people wanted to work for the guy. Yeah. I didn't know Joe that well, but there was a big aura around Clayton Williams. Everyone, I got to work for Clayton.
Huh.
So, like I say, all the stars misaligned simultaneously, and I jumped on it.
Okay, so is that when Vartech got started? Was that the original?
No, well, that's the kind of the original management team. Joe and I, and of course several others, we operated Claydesta for about 4 years. Joe resigned and went to work for a company called Teleconnect of Cedar Rapids, Iowa. I stayed behind and was promoted and so forth. But same thing. It seems like in life your best asset is also your worst liability. Well, Clayton was well diversified into multiple oil and gas companies, and so this communication company was kind of a stepchild. Anyway, he was again just using it to grow, to get people to move into his complex, and then it became a statewide deal. We actually ended up with 29% of the market share of Midland, Texas, and in the high teens in several other West Texas towns. It was a ride, but Clayton would teach you, and he'd say this himself, he'd teach you things that you shouldn't do. The School of Hard Knocks. So we ran a massive advertising campaign. Every time we'd open a new office, we'd run what they call double page, full color ads for 6 weeks, every Sunday, and then 1-page ads every day during the week. A massive TV campaign, telemarketing, radio, direct sales, just a direct mail. So massive campaign. We get to the end, we'd have huge market share, and he'd say, well, it worked. Well, what worked? We couldn't measure it. And back to my key performance indicator description relative to Safeway, we couldn't measure anything to figure out what really worked and what didn't. But if you threw enough money at something was going to happen, and it did.
It was just activity.
Right. So we penetrated the market, became a going concern, but we lost a lot of money. And Clayton had the chance to sell the company. I actually was recruited by Joe Mitchell. Remember, I said Joe went to Teleconnect. Well, then he started the company called Vartech Telecom. It was just a traditional long distance company, and he recruited me away from Claydesta to go work for him there. So I left Claydesta and went to work for Vartech.
So was Clay Desta, did Clayton sell it at that point or was about to?
Not, I didn't know at the time that he was getting ready to sell it, but within a few months he sold it.
Oh, okay.
He had also decided to run for governor during that same time frame, and had a horrible plane crash that killed 5 of his top executives.
Oh man.
I would have been on that plane had I stayed, because the guy that took my place was on that
Oh
airplane.
my goodness.
And that airplane crashed within 10 miles of my parents' house. So that's one of those aha moments in my life.
Oh wow.
Like, whoa, you dodged the bullet. It's, Providence.
Yeah.
I've probably been on that plane 25, 30 times through my career, flying it all over the state. Never even had a second thought about it, but it went down.
Oh my goodness. So that was a sign you're in the right place. What was it like working with Clayton Williams? I mean,
Oh, he was a blast. Probably the funnest job I ever had. It wasn't that financially rewarding, but he was just he motivated people. He told me, even after he lost the governorship, that's another story, but he told me one time, he said, Ron, life's not about not making mistakes. It's about not making the same mistake twice. And that's a business mantra I've employed the rest of my life. But he would, again, the company would be so motivated that he might say, let's go take that hill. Well, we'd go take that hill and we'd get up there and look around and we're on the wrong hill. But
how in the world did he do that though? Did he just love people well? I mean, he was just super charismatic. I mean,
just very charismatic. He walked through the office and put $100 bills on secretary's desk. I mean, he every once in a while he'd do a well called We the People, and it wasn't his well, it was the employees. He just knew how to motivate. And probably never been to a management school in his life, but he got it.
Yeah.
And like I say, he was just of the opinion that I guess I translated what he said to me that day into a mantra for my life. You can go through life and you make a mistake, and a mistake, just bam, bam, bam. It just takes one correct decision to put you back on track, whether that's in your career, spiritually, or in your marriage relationship or whatever. And Clayton kind of taught me that. He said, business languishes because managers won't make decisions. He said, I may make the wrong decision, but it's a decision. And he could make bad decisions work.
Yeah. Man, that's good. That is some wisdom. So was he surprised or not surprised whenever you parted ways and went with Bartek at that point?
A little bit.
Or was he mad?
No, he wasn't that type. But he tried to talk me into staying and run the entire company. And I said, Clayton, you've got a financial team. You've got a guy that's really good at this, or managing a business by economics. I said, it's just time for me to move on. And he said, I get it. So we parted ways.
Okay. So here comes Bartek.
Right.
This is that big boy we were talking about at the beginning. So what point was it when you kind of came on board?
I actually, I guess Joe founded the company with his wife and a former Clay Desta employee, Ray Atkinson. I think they founded the company probably February of '89, somewhere in there. I came on as a consultant first in August of '89, and then he offered me a chief operating officer position that I started January 1 of '90.
Okay, so it was at the infant stage.
Correct.
How did you go? And you said it was founded with a $100,000 startup.
Right.
Okay.
Of which none of us had that kind of money.
So that was a big risk anyways.
Joe put in $20,000, and then he talked a company called Telephone Electronics Corporation, talked the principal in that into putting $80,000 in. So they had 80% of the company. Joe had 20, but Joe allowed management to come in from his 20%. So he essentially had 10% of the company, and then the managers had the other 10% in varying proportions.
Okay. And you came in February, or that's when it started. So how did it go? This blows my mind. So you got to just kind of walk us through the story from 100,000 startup capital to almost 2 billion in revenue. And
Well,
then,
the
yeah,
first
talk us through that.
the first thing Joe did, uh, he negotiated a contract back through the company that he had come from, Teleconnect, uh, where he would buy services from them and resell. We didn't have what they called a switching system yet. So he'd buy services from them and sell them to customers, so reselling. Uh, and then he bought a customer base that was already existing from an individual, and it actually started cash flowing the company. So, basically within a few months, we were throwing a little bit of cash, but we had an idea. Joe and I did back at Cladesta. We wanted to do a process called dial around. What that meant was you pick back in '84 when the Bell system was broken up, deregulated, so to speak. They set up a scenario where you could pick your primary carrier and dial one plus, whether that were AT&T or MCI or Sprint or any of the big ones. But you could dial a code, 10811 was our code, and go around their dialing scheme. So you didn't tell customers to change their carrier. Just keep your security blanket, keep AT&T, but just dial our little code and it'll be cheaper. So
And you just
they dial
bypass
it,
them.
right. They dial that code, they make 30 phone calls or so a month. Uh, we would get the call records, ironically, from Southwestern Bell would hand us the call records. I didn't say that right. We had our call records for the switching system, but we would hand Southwestern Bell the call records back and say, here's the charges. This 10-minute phone call is $1.94 or whatever. Go bill them on your bill. So they would actually receive in their Southwestern Bell bill a little slip at the back. It said Bartek Telecom long distance. No one ever noticed it. It was cheaper. They loved it. And if they didn't pay their bill, Southwestern Bell would turn them off. So we had an excellent hammer, only had 1.4% bad debt.
Oh my goodness. I don't know if I still fully understand how that works as far as the long distance charges back then and that type of thing. So Southwestern Bell was you guys were a carrier also providing those services and they were
Well, they were,
too. Is that right?
Southwestern Bell was the local carrier and provided dial tone and wiring into your house, provided your phone service. So when you dial a long distance call, like say if there's one plus and they happen to be an AT&T customer, Southwestern Bell would route that call to AT&T to one of
Okay.
their switching systems. And then let's say it was going to Chicago, Illinois, AT&T would take that up to Chicago, Illinois, and then drop it off on another local telephone company to terminate the phone call.
Okay. So you guys with the code, it just routed them all back to you guys.
Right. We were
Okay.
what they call long haul carrier. So we provided the long distance element,
Okay.
but then the local telephone companies provided the originating access and the terminating access
Okay.
to place the call.
That's incredible. So really Southwestern Bell did your billing as well. That's
That's
amazing.
correct.
So you saw some
And
pretty large increase.
yeah, all the Bell companies provided that billing service. So we just started getting contracts with all the service. We'd always, like I say, at Cladesta, because we're using all that newspaper advertising, we always wondered what would happen if we, in the newspaper ad, advertised this code, 10811, and then they dial one plus for their phone call. What would happen if we allowed customers to do that? Well, we never tried it. We never negotiated those contracts. When we got to Bartek, we pulled out that old thought business plan and gave it some wheels. Ironically, we tried newspaper and publishing the number, didn't work.
Oh,
What worked?
really?
What worked was junk mail. And
Oh
the
my
only reason it
goodness.
worked is because we put a sticker in there, a little square sticker that might be 1.5 by 1.5 that had that code on it, and they'd stick it on their phone. And we just, hey, put this on your phone. Whenever you get ready to make a long distance call, dial this magic code, and it's going to be cheaper.
Oh my goodness. Do you remember when the sticker idea came about?
Uh, Probably summer of '90.
And was it just something that you guys decided, or was there some guy who
Well, we had the idea all the way back in, like say, '84 at deregulation. We just weren't sure how to really launch it. What would be the mechanism? Could we get customers to do that? But at Vartech, we bought a little customer base of a group that was doing something similar over in Athens. But they were using a different code. It was a 950 and a bunch of numbers and all this kind of stuff. And we actually, when we bought them, we hired the owner as the consultant, said, well, what happened? Can we switch it to this real short code and let people make the trip? He said, no, it'll never work. But we did it and it worked.
oh my goodness.
We walked in one day and, of course, we didn't have a whole lot of money to grow it initially. So we used vendor finance. We assembled 30 some odd printers and mail, people that packaged mail, was printing and stuffing and so forth. And we told them our plan. We'd already run a test and it had worked. We showed them the results and said, we need 90-day financing. Virtually everyone got up and left, but two or three stayed, and we made them so much money over the years.
Oh my goodness. So I mean, that had to just accelerate things and skyrocketed at that point. Was it just like a rocket? I mean,
Well, two things. One was the concept itself was pretty unique when you stop and think about it. To give an example, we only heard from 1 out of 6 customers that ever used us. The rest never called us, never signed up. They just put that sticker on the phone and started dialing. So one was just the innate possibility. The way I example of how I liken this is that if I were to drive up to your house with a brand new Yukon Denali, park it in front, it's fully gassed, it's washed, it's ready to go. You get in the car, you drive it down the road, I charge you X cents a mile. Well, that's essentially what this concept was. If you didn't use it, you didn't pay a dime. If you used it, so user paid. You didn't have to sign anything. You didn't have to carry insurance on it. It was just magic.
that's just nice. I mean, that's the no contract, no commitment thing. That was way back then.
But the second thing that gave it big time wings, I'd say, our first product was a product called Penny Call or Toll Saver. We had several different products, but basically they'd make 10 calls and the 11th call would be a penny, up to 10 minutes in length. If it was over that, then we charge them a little. So that kind of got us started. But then one day, Sprint came out with a product called Sprint Sense. And they started, typically a long distance call back during that time was 25 cents a minute. Well, Sprint said, okay, we're going to charge you 10 cents a minute from 7 at night to 7 in the morning, as long as the call is out of state, interstate, however you want to phrase it. Well, they were pouring millions of dollars advertising that product. So we came up with the idea, well, let's piggyback their advertising. But instead of 10 cents a minute, only out of state and only 7 to 7 at night, we'll make it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, in state, out of state, doesn't matter, it's 10 cents a minute. Well, our costs at the time were 10 cents a minute, roughly. So that wasn't going to work. So what we did was put a $5 a month fee on it and a 3-minute minimum. And that 3-minute minimum has a legacy way back with AT&T and grandma turning over the egg timer. That was 3 minutes. So
Oh
a long
wow.
distance call minimum was three minutes back during that time. Well, doing that 3-minute minimum and that $5 fee drove our effective rate to just under 14 cents a minute, which means we had
40% profit.
markup.
Oh my goodness.
And it took off like a rocket.
Oh
We
my
went
goodness.
from about 200 million. This was 4 or 5 years deep. Well, it's 96. So we were 5, 6 years deep in the company. We had built up to about 200 million in revenue a year. So we started in the fall. We tested it in the summer. We launched it in the fall of 96. By the end of 97, 16 months later, we were at over $1 billion run rate.
Oh
So
my gosh.
we went up 5x in 16 months.
What was it? I mean, just I mean, just that massive profit margin on it.
Just simplicity.
Yeah.
People could calculate the rate. They knew if they talked for 13 minutes is $1.30. You can't do that with any other thing. If it's a nickel, which later on we tried a nickel because it was, our cost had come down. People can't make that calculation, but they could with a dime. So
So what's the business?
Sprint was sitting there fueling the advertising, just promoting, and we were just piggybacking. And they could calculate their rates. If part of the secret herbs and spices to this, if they got an answer machine, if you made a call and hit an answer machine, well, that might have taken 22 seconds. Well, we charge 30 cents. And there's a lot of short calls. So those short calls is what gave us our margin along with the $5 fee. But customers loved it. They could calculate it. They could see value. Again, if they didn't make a phone call, they didn't get a dime charged.
That was a big deal. I mean, what's the big takeaway for any business from that, just that time period of growth? I mean, it seems like you guys were marketing as well, but also
Yeah.
simple customer service, providing value that made them win as well.
And again, like I said, only 1 out of 6 ever called us anyway. So it wasn't a high touch, high feel. In fact, we would call them with telemarketing. We launched a test with telemarketers later on and said, hey, would you like to just dial 1+ and not have to dial the crazy code? Absolutely. Can you do that? Well, we'd do it. And guess what would happen? The second we changed them to Vartec Telecom as their primary carrier, they had left AT&T or MCI or Sprint. Here came $100 check to win them back. So it was a kiss of death for us. We were better off running silent. Joe Mitchell has a saying that spouting whale gets harpooned. So we decided, shut up, enjoy it. Don't try to change things. Just let them dial the silly little code.
Yeah.
And they'd
And
dial those 5 extra digits and they'd save money.
That's an interesting like gap there. I mean, you're trying to make it even easier for them, but they're just so used to dialing the code and you never hear them from you.
Well, and so many of them, I think initially might have come on and said, well, how they mail this mail to occupant? They don't even know who I am. I might as well try a few calls and see if they even bill me. They don't know who I am. Well, sure enough, here comes a phone bill for their phone service that they had 817 XXX phone number. Well, in their local phone bill was these 31 calls that came from Vartec. And they didn't even look at the Vartec logo on that page. It was still on Southwestern Bell billing paper. So they just assumed it was Bell. And they knew Bell would cut them off if they didn't pay their bill. And they were getting value. So they're sitting there going, well, shoot, I might as well stay.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So was that all during the time you guys became one of the largest junk mail providers ever and the biggest customer of the post office?
Absolutely.
So how did that all come about? Was that part of the?
Well, one way I always say it is we weren't a telecom company. We were a junk mail company. We had grown to 49 states. We did not do Hawaii. But it just really got legs. The beauty of it, remember I went back to saying we couldn't measure marketing at Clay Dusty Communications. We couldn't quantify what worked. Well, in the Vartec world, we could quantify what worked. If I mailed, say, 10,000 mailers to Tyler, Texas, well, I knew the phone numbers sequences. It started with a 903 area code, and then it had a 741 first 3 digits or second 3 digits, I'll say it that way. So I would see those phone numbers come onto our switching system. Well, we'd download all the call records and we'd see all these brand new 903 741 numbers. I'm using fictitious.
Yeah.
But we'd download all those call records and we'd see all these first time users. So I mailed 10,000. I got 1,400 people coming on. It's kind of a 14% response. So it was easy to calculate. And we knew it within 7 days. We knew whether we'd hit a home run or not. At the end of 7 days, I would know for this mailer, did it have payback and how long was it? It was 3 months, 2 months, 6 months, whatever. And if it were real short, I'd mail it again.
Yeah,
You know,
most stuff is not that easy to measure on those type of deals at all.
right.
Huh. But so you were just mailing those things out. I mean, you were just doing that constantly all over the United States at that point. Just started like different regions, just the more customers. I mean, the US was
Yeah.
your sandbox.
At first it was shotgun. So we would hit a market and we'd mail everybody. But, obviously as time progressed, we became more sophisticated and became more targeted that they had what they call carrier routes, which might be 9 blocks or 15 blocks of addresses. Well, we got to the point where we literally could say 1017 Anywhere Street is going to respond better than 1021 Anywhere Street. Didn't matter we were looking at your name. We could pull the demographics. We knew who to mail. So later on, we got much more precise and much more targeted versus blanket bombing.
Yeah.
But like I say, if something were working, if we got a 2 or 3 month payback, we'd mail it again within weeks and might get a 6 month payback. We'd mail it again, might be a 9 month payback. We'd hit a criteria where it just wasn't responding. We'd leave it alone. But then we'd get more precise on drilling down and mailing Josh versus Ron.
Yeah.
And away we'd go. Our 3 target customers were coupon clippers, which was kind of that Midwest America, college students, and then retirees, because all 3 needed to save money. The housewife at Cedar Rapids, Iowa, was a coupon clipper, so she wanted to save money. The college student calling boyfriends, calling girlfriend back home, needed to save money.
Yeah.
And then retirees, fixed budget, save money. So those were kind of our general targets. But on top of that, rural was better responding than urban.
Wow.
Same reason, if you stop and think about it, if you live in a small town, you're probably, let's say you live in Bayard, Texas, 20 miles from Abilene. Well, if you wanted to go shopping, you had to go to Abilene.
Yeah.
Or if you wanted to call somebody for a service, you call long distance from Bayard to Abilene. So the smaller towns had much higher long distance usage. So they needed to save. They had a need for making phone calls. So we'd just mail the tar out.
Golly. How did it all resolve? Like what happened to the company? I know that's a fast story. I wish we could spend 20 more minutes on this because I'm just fascinated. But what happened at the end? What was the end like?
Well, okay, so we had grown to the 6th largest long distance company in the nation.
That's unbelievable.
We were the largest independent. All the others were public. But we woke up one day and we knew this was coming. We woke up one day and the 3 big cellular companies, which at the time was Sprint, MCI, and AT&T, T-Mobile was coming along as well. But they all decided one at a time, but within weeks, let's take a 25 cent a minute phone call, which is what cellular was charging for long distance. Let's bundle it. Let's charge them $50 a month for all you can eat. Well, the second they did that, this little thing right here ruined.
He's holding up a cell phone. Yeah.
And so that was the first reason, was it was perceived to be free. The second reason is, I don't know Josh Allen's phone number. This does.
Yeah.
So the smartphone was Rolodex. So, and I was primary example. I was working in Dallas, living here in Aledo, driving back and forth every day. Well, towards the end of the day, I just put all my callbacks on my desk and wait to call them back on the way home. So all my long distance calls were on my cell phone. And that's what's happened to America. 8 out of 10. Remember I said we were in the top 6, we were in the top 10. 8 out of 10 filed bankruptcy within weeks. Only AT&T and Sprint survived, because our average customer went from $33 a month to $9 a month. And that happened in weeks once they bundled long distance into the cell phone. And
oh my goodness. Did you guys see that? You said you saw it coming, or you thought that was going to happen?
Yeah. I actually wrote a memo to Joe back in 1994, saying both the cell phone companies and the local companies were ultimately going to bundle all you can eat. Now, at the time, I predicted it'd be $80 a line. Turned out being 50, but
Wow.
it happened. And
And
I
it
mean, we knew
just,
it was coming. It was just a matter of time. But, as a public company and you've got access to public money by raising stock, you can float another stock raise, go out with an IPO, issue more stock and raise money, kind of like the Treasury does printing money nowadays.
yeah.
But as a private company, you can get up every year. You hit a double this year and a single this year and a grand slam this year. You get up your 15th year and you strike out, it's over.
Yeah.
There's no access to public funds. The business model wasn't working anymore. What we really should have done was figured out a way to morph into doing our own cellular company. But that took $30 billion to deploy a nationwide cell phone company. And even though we were making money, we weren't making that kind of money.
Oh, wow.
Could we have gone public and leveraged it and raised it? Maybe. Probably what we should have done was merge with someone like T-Mobile, which was owned by Deutsche Telekom. Deutsche Telekom, the German telephone company, needed a network over here. Well, we had the nationwide network.
Yeah.
We probably should have sold.
Yeah.
Or merged or been gobbled up or whatever, however you want to call it.
Well, it's easy to see looking back though.
Coulda, woulda, shoulda.
I know. Oh, wow. So at its prime, it was, 200 million in revenue and 1.7 kind of in grace. And then the switch turned off.
Yeah, it was peak was $1.7 billion in revenue and made about 200 million our peak year in profit. And like I say, we did the same thing in Europe, and it was going pretty well over there. Another thing that we did at the time, we bought Excel, which was a multi-level company, long distance company, and thought, hey, since we're both in the same arena and we can enjoy the economies of scale on the network, it's just we probably took on too much too quickly. And then when the cell phone did its deal, we were toast.
Oh gosh, it's heartbreaking. What are some of the greatest things you think that happened? Like the most successful things you did, like you guys did during a time to just see the rapid growth? Was it measuring? Was it keeping it simple? Like what are some of the big things that take away?
Far and away, it wasn't keep it simple. I'll get to that in a minute. Far and away, it was the ability to measure response.
Yeah.
So if we mailed a market and got a 18-month response, no more for that market. But ironically, if you mail me junk mail, first of all, junk mail doesn't work much anymore. 9/11 hit, had the anthrax scare, and junk mail started petering out as far as its response rates. But if you mail me a piece of junk mail, it needs to be on a postcard, it needs to be very bullet pointed, very precise, very quick. You only got a few seconds to sell me or not. I'm not Vartex's customer. Vartex's customer, remember I said was a coupon clipper and wanted to save money. They actually liked going through junk mail and reading all that junk. So, we'd have 6 or 7 pieces of paraphernalia, collateral, propaganda, whatever you want to call it. There was all sorts of stuff in there, convincing them to try it. So there's no way that I ever would have responded to that.
But you understood your customer, which is,
that's what it's all about.
Like that's what that was the big takeaway I hear from that. You understood exactly who you were targeting.
Yeah, even a blind hog finds an acorn.
That's a big acorn, Ron.
We had an idea that we wanted to try. We bought a company that was kind of dabbling in it, and we took it to a different level. But at first, it was a lot of luck because we didn't have those measurement devices, and we started thinking, this is working. We can feel it working. We're seeing an uptick in traffic, but we didn't realize, hey, let's drill down and look for all the call records and match it up to how many households we mailed. So it was an evolution. Like I say, life's about growing. It's mistake management, and we got very good at mistake management.
Wow. What would you give advice just based on your experience on that. And I hate we need to wrap it up. But what would you give as advice to some young business people? Whether, I mean, it doesn't matter. I think a lot of this will translate into all kind of business. I mean, you guys were just running on a super high level.
Right. Uh, One of them I've kind of hit on. In fact, I just alluded to it is don't be afraid to make mistakes.
Okay.
I mean, you need to think through as much as you can before you try something. But like say in the Clayton Williams time, he taught me you don't get anywhere if you don't roll the dice. But informed dice rolling is kind of nice too. So you take it as far as you can, but don't be scared to make a mistake. Then find that mistake and change it. You know, there's alcoholics. AA has a saying, or has the serenity prayer as their whole mantra.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, if you can apply, those are great words. Forget the substance abuse issue. Apply that principle in your life and decide which things you can change and which things you cannot. If you cannot, let them go. You know, you need the serenity to let them go. If you can change them, focus on the things you can change. And you know, like I say, you can go through life, and if you adopt that principle and just realize, hey, I'm going to try to focus and fix the things I can, whether that's in your marriage, whether that's in your career, your job, you know, your finances or whatever, those are just great words.
Yeah. That's what I hear from you too. I mean, those are two big things, or three big things. Measure as a business guy, you know, be willing to take the risk and make mistakes, and then let go of things you can't change. And the things you can change, put your energy and focus on changing those.
And then there's one more thing I'd add to it, and it's ethics.
Yeah.
And that is, you know, you can go through life and you can lose friends, you can lose your health, you can lose a spouse, you can lose a child, wealth, careers. You can lose everything. Cannot lose your word.
Yeah.
Only you can give your word away.
Yeah.
And if you apply ethics to what you're doing, you know, whether it's in your spiritual life or your career, again, in your marital life, it just makes life a whole lot easier.
Gosh, and I've seen that with you. Yeah.
Well, and as you get older in life and your memory starts to fade a little bit, it's so much easier to remember the truth.
Yeah. You don't ever have to remember what you said because you've been telling the truth. How can somebody connect with you? So right now, you guys are owning and operating, you know, Redhead Realty, you know, on Willow Park, doing a lot of commercial development. We just didn't even get a chance to get into that, and I apologize. But how can somebody connect with you the best way? Just if they have, a real estate they want to talk over, or development, or just any question or follow up on this, what's a good way to reach you, Ron?
Well, certainly my email is just Ron@Railhead Realty.
Okay.
It's always been a challenge for us because a lot of people try to spell the word realty, REALITY. There's no I. So Ron@railheadrealty.com.
Okay.
Our office number is 817-441-2255.
Thank you, Ron. Thank you for making time. I feel like we had to cut it short a little bit too, because I know there's so much more we can learn. I know you just from being around you, and the wisdom, and I have soaking up the same stuff. So thank you for being so transparent, and thank you for making time this morning. Well, today, whenever somebody's listening to it. So,
like I say, the more mistakes you make, the smarter you get.
That's a good perspective. Thanks, Ron. Have a great day.
Enjoyed it.
Hey, this is Micah. Me and Josh would like to thank you for joining us in the Storyfield today. We hope you have enjoyed our discussion, and to learn more about us and the Storyfield, visit thestoryfield.com. This podcast is sponsored by the Allen Firm, legal guides for many of life's situations. To learn more about the Allen Firm, visit allenlawfirm.com. Have a blessed day, week, and year, and we will see you next time on the Storyfield.
This is Josh again. I just wanted to thank you for listening and let you know that this podcast is really about hope and about giving you hope for your life. So if you're listening and you're in a place where you're really feeling hopeless right now, or if you do not know Jesus, we have some great news to share with you and would love a chance to pray for you. Email us at hope@allenlawfirm.com. That's hope@allenlawfirm.com, and we'll reach out to you soon. Thank you for listening. God bless you.